Deputy Speaker, acknowledging the words of the member for Herbert and thanking you for your support. I'm one of the members of this committee and it gives me great pleasure to talk to the interim report and a call out for community to be involved. So there's a few things I'd just like to cover in my brief presentation. I'd like to talk about the committee, I'd like to talk about some of the key points in the report, and I'd like to finish by acknowledging an event that took place in my electorate that's relevant to the report. So, colleagues, I come from northeast Victoria, and one would not normally associate me with being on this committee, but I am so pleased to be there. I'm one of 12 members. There's been 5 Labor members, 5 NLP members, 1 independent myself and 1 Green. And it has been probably, in my career to date, one of the nicest and most productive committees I've been on. Nice is probably not a good word really, but the level of respect, the contribution that the committee people want to make to doing this really well, I think should give people of Australia enormous confidence. It's a parliamentary select committee, so we actually report to the parliament, and it's got senators and it's got House of Reps people working together. And the sense of collegiality that exists has been just the most wonderful thing from my experience. And I'm so pleased that this interim report is bipartisan. We've worked on it really closely together, and it brings to the people of Australia our best efforts at this time. So what's in the report? There are 2 things in particular that I'd like to bring to your attention. The first is a very strong commitment from the committee that the people have told us they support a concept of a voice. And what is that voice about? And I just want to talk to, this is one of the areas we're really looking for more input. But in the report, we talk about the voice will fulfil a number of functions, including serving as a representative body or bodies, which provides mechanisms to consult and engage with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples on policy, legislation and services which affect them, leading to a reduction to barriers to access, to advance self-determination, and as a consequence lead to greater local decision-making, to a more unified and reconciled nation, and to be supported by the overwhelming majority of Australians. So that's no small ask of a voice. But I think it's really important to understand and know that that's encapsulated in the report, and that's what we're trying to do. And the second thing I'd like to talk about in the report, which I find so useful, is what we call design principles. So Chapter 3 outlines the principles which we're looking at to design that voice. I just want to quote, which I think helps set the scene here, that there has been a shift in thinking from the primacy of a national voice to some combination of a local, regional and national model. And I'm really pleased with that, because I think if we can come up with a model that works at the local level, works at the regional level and works at the national level, and in each of those spheres of government, whether it be local government or regional government or the national government, we provide opportunities for voices to be heard, I think we'll be doing a really good thing. So the third part of the report that I'd like to bring to the attention, as mentioned by the member for Herbert, is that Chapter 7 is called Comments from the Committee, as separate from some of the information we've been hearing during the inquiry. And there's some very strong comments here from the committee and questions that we are seeking more information on. And there's all Chapter 7, it talks about this voice. There's common themes that have emerged from submissions and evidence presented to the committee, and there is strong support for the concept of a voice. But what we haven't really got at the moment is what the voice looks like. What's the flesh on the bones? What's the detail? How do we actually make national, regional and local work? And so we're calling for greater input on some of those specific questions. And I'm so looking forward to the next period when we actually get to flesh out, well, what are the models that could work and how can we work together on that? And the second area, other than the voice, but the second area that I'd just like to pick up on is what we call truth-telling. The committee is of the view at this stage that there would be value in considering what truth-telling means and how it might work both in formal and informal settings at the national, regional and local level, where communities could come together to commemorate both positive and negative examples of the history of our communities. And then there's some ideas about how that works. And I know in my community there's an enormous interest in truth-telling and how it works both formally and informally. So I'm particularly putting the call out to communities to give us some feedback on The Voice, or in your community, how would you like to be involved in truth-telling? And I know in Australia we often talk about what happened in South Africa after apartheid and the truth-telling commission that was set up there. So there's some really useful examples that we might be able to look at. And in closing, just to tell a short story about this report and how it's working in my electorate. And I'd like to acknowledge Senator Malandindri McCarthy. Senator McCarthy is on our committee. She's a senator from the Northern Territory. And on Sunday, July the 29th, she was invited to present the Kerford Oration, which is an annual oration that's held in my electorate of Indi, but the actual oration is held in Beechworth. And Senator McCarthy was the orator. And I was looking forward to seeing her and hearing her ideas. But what I didn't expect is that 500 people would turn up in Beechworth on a cold, wet, rainy day. The population of the whole Indigo Shire is not much more than 500. It's a few thousand. But there was a huge number of people who turned up. Senator Malandindri did a fantastic speech. And at the end of it, colleagues, there was a standing ovation. And I don't think I could even begin to explain the feeling in the room of support for what we as a nation are trying to do with this committee. The community want us to do it well. They really want us to address the problems of the past and move on to a future where we as a nation can recognise our history and we can be proud of who we are and our long history, 60,000 plus years we've got in on this continent, but we can confidently step out to the future in the next 50 and 100 years knowing that we are a united people and proud of our history and proud of our heritage and ready to really make the most of it. So thank you so much, Senator McCarthy, for coming to Beechworth, to my electorate. Thank you so much for sharing your story and for being there for us. And in closing, I say to my electorate, I'm on this committee and it's got my full commitment to do my very best for the future of Australia. And I'm looking forward to representing my community in the next stage. So the closing dates, I think September the 12th, September the 17th is the date for submissions to be in. That we've invited one of my other colleagues, the member for Farrer, Susan Lee, is also on this committee. And as you would know, we share a boundary, Albury and the twin cities of Albury-Wodonga. So we've invited the committee to come to Albury-Wodonga, and we're hoping that will happen on Monday, September the 24th, and it will be an opportunity for both Albury-Wodonga and surrounding communities to talk to the committee about their aspirations for this report. And finally, in closing, I would like to acknowledge the work of the Secretariat. Some enormous goodwill, far beyond what's, I think, expected in a normal job. You've done a fantastic piece of work in working with the committee and helping us do our job really well. So could you please pass that on to the relevant people? And I'm particularly looking forward to being in Parliament on November the 29th when we present our final report, which I'm really hoping will be unanimous and will do for the people of Australia what they're asking us to do.